What's up, guys? All right, so today I'm gonna be breaking down my cylinder head with my springs, taking my springs off, retainers and seals and all that. Now, this is a LT4. LT4, the LT1 I'm not sure about, but the LT4 for sure has. You would think that the springs are the same as far as the retainers is concerned, but they're not. The intake and the exhaust, intake exhaust, have different retainers, and I'll show you once we break them down. And also the for the LT4, the exhaust has a lash cap on it. Lash cap, lash cap, lash cap, lash cap. Now there was a problem with my springs that I got from Texas Speed. I will admit they sent me the setup for LT1, which was completely wrong. So they finally sent me the correct setup. So if you're doing an LT4, if you have an LT4, make sure you get the correct setup, LT4. And in that kit, you should have, here, let me get my stuff here, get my stuff together. Okay, your seals, your seat seals, okay, that should be the same. All right. However, they send you, I don't know if my lighter show that. They should send you some retainers for the intake side for the LT4. And they should send you some retainers for the exhaust side. For the exhaust. And they are different. Also, you have to reuse your keepers. They'll send you 16 keepers. And you use those keepers for the intake side. You use your stock keepers for the exhaust side. So let me open up a retainer real quick. I don't want to make this video long, but get out a retainer for the exhaust and one retainer for the intake. All right, this is the retainer for the intake. Intake, as you can see, intake. And then here is the exhaust. You notice the difference. So that's the exhaust. And here's the intake. You notice the difference? So the retainer for the spring is different for the intake and the exhaust. So make sure you note that. Also, when you go to take your compressor springs, let me get my light in here. Make sure you guys can see. There we go. When you get rid of compressor springs, there's a bunch of tools out there. Well, once again, the LT4 is different, offset. So I ordered a special tool from Bluegrass Performance. They make a special tool specifically for the LT4 head. And it looks like most of your other tools, except there's a special, I don't know if you can see that they got that cut out there where you can go down and compress the spring further down. But there's a special tool, and I got this from Bluegrass Performance. I know, guys, I've read horror stories where guys have made their own tool and didn't use hardened bolts. They end up, those springs under an enormous amount of pressure. And they didn't use hardened steel bolts. They end up snapping the head, the bolts right off into the head. And that was a pain in the ass to do. So anyway, it's pretty self-explanatory here what I'm doing. I hope you can see that. And what I do is I'll put a piece of cardboard underneath to help, make up for that little gap in underneath there. Make up for that little gap. put me a piece of cardboard. Some guys use a towel folded up. I hope you guys can see that. So as you can see, got my tool on there. Make sure it's lined up with my spring. And then I'm just going, now Bluegrass says you should use shouldn't use an impact tool, but I ain't got time for all that. So just take your time and bump it down till it all the way down. Then you know I got big fat fingers. I need not magnet to get these keepers out. Some of them can give you a pain in the ass, you know. And remember, keep your keepers. Don't throw them away, because you're going to have to use them again for the exhaust side. And for those keepers that, you know, give me a hard time, I got like a little pride, little pit that I help, you know, get down in to get them out, because my fingers is fat. And then, boom. Got all my keepers out. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do a couple of them. And now that I got my keeper out, I slowly back it back off. And spring is released. Spring is released. Okay? And just to show you I'm not full of shit, I'm gonna show you the old retainers. Okay? Look, you notice the difference? Here's the intake side. Here's the exhaust side. And my lash cap even came off in it. My lash cap, you got a lash cap that goes on the exhaust. It came off. So, but there's my retainers, and as you can see, they're different. Exhaust and intake. Okay? So once again, the LT4 head is different. You got a lash cap on the exhaust, and you got different retainers between the exhaust and the intake. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do one of them real quick. That way, just keep this video as short as possible. We ain't gotta be doing all that. So now that you got the springs out, just get you a pair of, you know, channel locks, and then you can just pull the seals out. Just boom. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm just putting and grabbing around the seal and pulling it out. See that? I just grabbed it around the side, pulled it out. It comes right out. And then you put your two right back in there. Push it down on it a little bit. And then you take your number 12 socket. Then you just lightly tap till it's down. That one's down. That one's down. Now they got a special tool to push those seals down as well, but that number 12 works just as fine. Now that we have that in, I can go ahead and put my springs in. And this is a double spring, nothing, you know, Brian Tugely, all those guys, Comp Cams and all of them, they all have double springs, so nothing new here. Now again, now that I'm putting it back together, so I want to make note of the exhaust side and the intake side. Remember I showed you the difference, right? So the exhaust, this is the exhaust. Notice the difference. It like comes up into like a peak almost. Is the exhaust. This is my exhaust side. And then, as you can see, this is my intake. Notice the difference. Intake. Okay. Put my tube back on it. Put my tube back on it, and I try to line mine up as best I can. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky, trying to get them keepers in. And remember, your keepers, you're gonna use the stock keepers for the exhaust side, and you're gonna use the keepers that you got from Texas Speed on the intake side. And they send you instructions on that, you know. I've already read them, but for you guys who don't like to read, you know, don't say I didn't tell you. Don't say I didn't tell you, goddamn it. Line this up a little bit. I'd like to see him come through. Okay. So remember, you use your stock ones for the exhaust side. Use your stock keeper for the exhaust side. And then they give you new keepers for the intake side. I'm not gonna do the whole set of 8. I'm just gonna do this 2, and then you get the gist of it. And these keepers can be kind of tricky, getting them to seat, especially if you got fat fingers. So I'm gonna try to do this and see if I can get it done in one swoop. I doubt it, but we're gonna give it a try. And I like to try to keep my hand, try to keep them keepers in place. Take a look at it. The intake side took pretty good, but the exhaust side looking kind of, the one side didn't fall in place. So, once again, these keepers can be a pain in the ass, trying to get them to seat. So I'm just trying to show you guys what I'm dealing with. Let's see if you guys can see that or not. But I need to go down just a little bit. See if I can get that to fall in. I try to keep my hand because they like to move around on you when you use this tool. See if I can get that to fall in. See, this one give me a hill over here. The intake is ready, but the exhaust is giving me a pain in the ass. And then when you got fat fingers trying to get down in there, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I need to get my light. See if I move my light over here a little closer. So the keeper on the one side, it's not seating well. It's not want to go down in the seat. So I'm gonna try to keep it there in place as best I can. Get that in there. A little pick too, because my hand is kind of chubby. Get that in there. See, the exhaust side need to come down a little more. See if I can get it. get it, guys. Bear with me here. Sorry about the this one. Is the hardest part is getting the damn keeper to seat correctly. That's the hardest part. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna go down a little. See if I can get this, because the exhaust side don't want to sit down. Okay, I think I can. Not sure if you guys can see that or not, but I'm gonna see if I can get it right here. And I like try to put my fingers there to try to like keep them in place. You can see if that'll work for me. Not low, gradually bring it back up. Gradually bring it back up and see what I'm looking like. You see, 'cause this tool don't, bring that spring down straight and evenly around the valve stem. So sometimes the valve stem might be off, cocked out a little bit, and the keeper won't sit down the way it's supposed to. So you got to work with it up and down until they seat right. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm going up and down. Because one side is seating, then the other side is giving you hell. So that's why I'm going up and down with it, trying to get to one side to seat. And this is the hardest part of the whole job right here when you're doing the springs. Just putting the keepers back in. And I ain't got no little hands, so you got to bear with me. And then I try to keep my hand there once I think I can get it to sit down where it's at. I try to keep my fingers there on those two keepers that's giving me problems. And I just try to bump it back up. Okay, so the exhaust side went in, but the damn intake side is giving me the blues. Intake side, give me the blues. So now, let's see. There it is, got it. Got him. So you got to keep going, working it back up and forth till you get them keepers to sit down. They will give you a headache. That's the hardest part, getting the damn keeper back in. And then make sure you put your lash cap back on the exhaust side. On the exhaust. Okay? And then you just repeat the process for the remaining valve springs. So the key to the thing to remember on the LT4 is, again, you got a different retainer for the intake, different retainer for the exhaust. And also you have to reuse your stock keepers on the exhaust side, because they're only going to send you 16 keepers, and all those need to be used on the intake side. I'm not going to do the whole head because, once again, them keepers can be a pain in the ass. But I just showed you a set that I just did, and as you can see, it was pretty straightforward until I got to putting the keepers in. So just take your time, and you can get it done. All right, guys, peace.